One of the most asked questions I get on the channel concerning Four Against Darkness is, where do I start? I'm interested in the game. There's a ton of stuff. I don't know where to start. And aside from the buying the base game book, Four Against Darkness, where do I go next to enhance that? And how do I really get going into the whole Four Against Darkness world? So this video is going to present a couple of different thoughts I have about that, and I'm going to group them by the type of experience you want to have. So if you want to do this in Four Against Darkness, you could buy this material. If you want to do that, you could buy this material. I'll say just a few points about or caveats about the video. First of all, I don't own every single thing that has been published for the game. I have purchased probably 22 or so books and supplements. I'm not going to be talking about all of them. As I said, this is going to be a kind of curated direction list. So I've bought all this content and I'm referring to just the content I own. So obviously it's going to be my opinion, which is the obvious fact of everything that's on the channel is my opinion. That's number one. Number two, I'm not going to categorize the material by whether or not it contains let's just call it R-rated material. If you're familiar with Four Against Darkness at all, you know that some of the books are not, we'll say, family friendly. Some of them are, some of them may be in the middle. The reason I'm not going to characterize that is because that standard, I think, is different for everyone. And so I'm just leaving that all aside. And I would just put a big asterisk by all the recommendations that if you're interested in purchasing something that I have mentioned because of the gameplay that it offers, you should do your own research as to whether or not the content is to your liking, because I don't want to be the one to assess what is or is not family friendly, let's say. So that's the next point I want to make. And the final point is that I'm obviously presenting categories that I have devised because I think they're useful for thinking about the game and how to tailor your purchasing to the type of gaming experience you want to have, but it's also not an either or. These categories are just for the sake of this video and to organize a lot of different material. The game itself thrives on the fact that all of the material can pretty much be integrated with each other, with the exception of some material that requires sort of higher level characters, but there's nothing inherent in anything that isn't useful with anything else. So even though I'm going to be sort of trying to organize it into categories, that doesn't mean that you can't integrate this stuff. So, of course, the first thing, perhaps obvious, perhaps not, but I'll say it, is you do need, no matter what, the Four Against Darkness main book. I actually only ever got a PDF of it. I don't like to play with PDFs, but by the time I came to Four Against Darkness, there was rumor of the second edition, so I didn't want to buy what I thought was the first edition book, but there has been no second edition, and I'm not sure that there ever will be, so I would say don't wait around for that. If you want to start playing the game, buy or get the core book called Four Against Darkness. You must have that in order to use anything else I will be presenting, because in essence, everything else is an expansion or a supplement to that. So that said, I'm going to start with the category of if you want to play Four Against Darkness, but just kind of like play Four Against Darkness plus, just get a little bit more content in the same realm of what is offered in the base game. I have 3 recommendations for you. And the first is Twisted Dungeons. Now, I also never got the physical copy of this, but I bought the PDF. It's Variant Dungeons for Four Against Darkness, and basically what it offers you is a D88 table that you can roll on to just provide a little flavor to a room you walk in, maybe a certain type of new trap or a certain type of terrestrial environment, like a fog that comes in, or all of a sudden there's 2 bosses or a teeny tiny room. I'm not going to go into it to spoil it for you, but it is in effect just a lengthy D88 table where the entries are sort of paragraphs and provide you with some site-specific rules to expand your dungeon, but you're still keeping to the same basic dungeon model. And along those lines, the second of the 3 books I'll recommend to expand the basic game is called Twisted Minions, Rules to Spice Up Your Encounters with Minions. So like the Twisted Dungeons, what we have here is a table. So Twisted Minions is rules to spice up your encounters with minions. You have an introduction and then some discussion of bringing story elements in, and then you have a D100 minions twist table. So it will explain to you maybe one of the minions is infected, maybe the minions have extra treasure, or maybe they have some sort of spell that they're going to use. So again, you can bring this in with a very basic gameplay when you encounter minions to roll on this and have an additional something with your minions. And then the third book that I'm going to recommend for enhancing the very basic gameplay is Twisted Hordes. Twisted Hordes is a long random table of mundane, magic, and special items for Four Against Darkness. They can all be used at all levels, and essentially it is exactly just that, just like a random table of things that you can roll on when you need to acquire a treasure or as an additional treasure or something like that. So it gives you just unusual things. Now, some of them, as I recall, may only be useful for certain characters, so you may have to re-roll on them if you're not playing the character. But these 3 books, the Twisted Hordes, Twisted Minions, and Twisted Dungeons, are the 3 books that I would recommend to stick with when you have your basic Four Against Darkness core game and you want to kind of just give it a little more depth and variety. Those are the 3 books to go to. Okay, now you may wish to go outside of the dungeon, and I've got some recommendations for you about that. The first one is The Court of the Pixie King. This is, it says, enter the realm of the fairies, both bright and beautiful and dark and foreboding. A battle for the rule of all Fatum is fought by the benevolent Seelie and the malign Unseelie. Who will win the crown, and what role will your party play? Now, here I'll say that there are different ways to play this book. There is a kind of like campaign play, but there are also just tables, Pixie King Wandering Monster table, a Pixie King Weird Monster table, Epic Treasures, Vermin, and there are 2 realms, the above ground outside realm and the below ground, and the tables that go with them. And then here are the rooms that you can draw out with them. So you don't need to play through the story points if you don't want. I have never actually done that. It is best understood, as it says here, Enchanted Meadows for Four Against Darkness for levels 1+. It basically takes your character and gives you the ability to go outside, to have dungeons that are outdoors, woodlands dungeons. And that is a great place to start if you're interested in things like fairies and the fae and the underworld, the good and the bad of that. If you are interested in outside material that is woodland adventures, this is for levels 4+, and it comes with just like your basic dungeon that you have in the main book, you have squares for woodland area types to draw your woodland dungeon, and it has woodland content, and it has treasures and vermin and minions that are related to woodlands. And as with pretty much all of these books, it comes with some new rules. Now, I'm not going to detail really what the new rules are in each book, because it's just a matter of, you get the rules with the book, and that's a design choice that has been made. There's no there's no one book of Four Against Darkness rules that I know of, unless it's been fan made and I'm not familiar with it. So, you'll be getting some rules and not, but really what we're talking about here is just the mode of play and what is offered in the book. So for woodland adventures, you need your characters to be 4 or plus. I recommend the Crucible of Classic Critters, and then the Pixie thing is for levels 1 plus, but those are kind of outside the dungeon books. Outside the dungeon books, that's a little darker and is also for 4 level plus are the Crag Adventures and Classes for Four Against Darkness. I use this book quite a lot. There are basically monsters and things native to mountains. So everything in here has to do with mountains, and you have your treasure, your events, your locations, your magic items, as well as some new character classes. But you can see there are, again, the suggested areas, the ways to travel through them, to make your maps, and the gameplay is pretty much standard. And then you do get a whole bunch of new classes that you can play here that are kind of a little bit thematic to this, like the moose folk or the owl folk or the tree folk or the dark elf. But again, here we're talking mostly about the gameplay. And this book, like the other one, it does have some missions that you can choose to go on and use the tables in here, but it also can be simply played as the regular game where you have tables that you'll just roll on to get your minions and your vermin and your treasure and such. So that's more Mountainous Mayhem, a little bit darker, as you can see sort of from the illustration here, outdoor travels in Four Against Darkness. And while I said I wasn't going to focus too much on books that provide just rules and characters, I did want to mention Wayfarers and Adventurers, because this book, which gives you new characters, I think is they're focused kind of on the outdoors. Like you have a druid here, and you've got a green troll that you could play, a wood elf, and the gnome. I often play the gnome. And so these are ones that particularly fit well, I think, with the books I was just showing you. So all this to say, the Wayfarers and Adventurers character classes fit really well with the Court of the Pixie King, Crucible of Classic Critters, the Woodland Adventures, as well as the Crag Adventures. And then, if you're interested in cities, I have 3 recommendations for you. So the outdoor areas that we talked about so far are sort of wilderness outdoors. If you're interested in being out of a dungeon but in a structure, we have 3 recommendations here for that. The Ravengers of Ruins are rules for ruined cities, their monsters, and custom beast folk for level 1 plus. And it gives you, again, some classes. It gives you rules for creating your own classes, as well as tables for rolling on things, city encounters, as well as locations in the city and walking through a city. And then there are a lot of special monsters that could exist within a city. So it brings the Four Against Darkness world into kind of an urban setting. And this book, the date on this, I don't have the date on this. It's been around for a few years at least. And I feel on some level it is the precursor to my next 2 recommendations, which are a pair of books that you would need to purchase together. The most recently released, I think, material as of this filming for Four Against Darkness, which is Treacheries of the Troublesome Towns, Tome 1 and 2. These are massive books that allow you to create it's called a Living Town Generator for any level. And this really develops for you an entire city and world, and it has the encounters, and it has the rules that go with doing things in cities that are more than just having enemy encounters and combat. I've done a video looking at these books. I think I've done 2 videos on them, actually. And they are, I would say, they represent the biggest jump forward in terms of taking the Four Against Darkness game into a totally different realm and really focusing on a creation of a living town, bringing it fairly close to like a role-playing type of situation where you have persistent things that happen in the world that you create. So if you have a store in one area of the town and something happens in that store and you come back to it, that thing has still happened. So this is a big leap up, but you can actually, if you have just the main book, I believe, I'm pretty sure you can just play with this. You need both of these volumes. I don't think, it says here you need Four Against the Abyss. Now, Four Against the Abyss, I was going to mention at the end, we'll bring it in now, because these are supplements for characters level 5 to 9, but I'm not 100% sure that is completely accurate because you can play these with any level. But the back of the book says you need Four Against the Abyss, so we will go with that. This is the next sort of supplement of basic rules that allow the characters to level up beyond level 4, which is what's covered in the main book. And then just to mention a couple of other things, if you are interested in bringing a flavor to your game that's necromantic, you can purchase Digressions of the Devouring Dead. And what that does is it gives you, again, familiar, you've got your weird undead table, you have your unique artifacts, everything has to do with the undead here, and you have the dungeon lair tables here that are going to be exploring the necromancer's lair or crypt, I guess. And so that is, if you are interested in sort of taking it out of the fantasy realm, but kind of more a darker and undead focus, this would be the way to go. And then the final thing I want to say is if you like the concept of Four Against Darkness, but want to not play Four Against Darkness, I've got two recommendations for you. By the same designer, there is Four Against Mars, which is a retro sci-fi pen and paper adventure game. It is phenomenal. I've done a video on it, and it is essentially Four Against Darkness in space. Unfortunately, there, to my knowledge, has never been any other content released for it, certainly not content from the designer. Maybe there's fan-made material in a Facebook group somewhere, but I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know. I really wish there was. This is a fantastic pen and paper retro sci-fi romp, and I really, really wish that more content would be created for this. It's very, very good. And then ending with also by the same designer, Alone Against Fear. This is a survival horror solo game. It is not Four Against Darkness in horror. It's its own game, but it uses very much the same mechanics, and it has the same type of tables. It is also just an excellent solo pen and paper kind of creepy. Well, it says Alone Against the Walking Dead, demons, vampires, werewolves. It is Alone Against Fear, and it is very well done. So if you want to be creeped out by blood spattered things and puppets and like an empty mall kind of thing, Alone Against Fear is a good place to look. So that is a look inside Four Against Darkness. I have lots of material for the game that has not been discussed in this video. These are some of the things, because I really wanted to present to you a way of going from the base game to your next step in Four Against Darkness. And I think, at least in terms of all the material that I have, this is hopefully has given you some type of roadmap for doing that based on the type of gameplay you are looking to have and the type of gaming experience you are looking to have.